What is the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game? Is a question I hear asked around a lot among the FNAF community, and whenever this question is asked, people usually say games like the Five Nights at Candy series, or the Joy of Creation, or One Night at Flumpty's, or Pop Goes, or Five Nights at Treasure Island. But, while those games are pretty good and have an undeniable impact on the community, my answer to that question is different. While I do often see people answer with this, it is not as often as I'd like to see because in my opinion, my answer to what I think the best FNAF fan game is are truly a fantastic set of games that have all the hallmarks of what makes a good fan game. If you've read the title, you already know, but my answer to that question would be the Dayshift at Freddy's Trilogy. I love this trilogy so much, every single game in it. This visual novel FNAF Fangame Trilogy being developed by Direct Doggo, the first game releasing on April 26, 2016, the second game releasing on June 30th, 2017, and the third and final game releasing on December 29th, 2018, all respectively, focuses on an orange man named Jack Kennedy who you play as, and while doing so, you get to see what Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is up to during the day as opposed to the night like in the official FNAF games. On the surface, it just seems like that, a concept meant to explore something we never see in the official FNAF games. However, underneath, this game is a comedic parody of those games with quirky but memorable characters, wacky as hell situations, and comedically strange world building, but even more underneath is a massive story exploring the theme of Fazbear Entertainment being a scummy and corrupt company that has torn families apart. This Fangame Trilogy is considered to be one of the best series in the FNAF Fangame world, but outside of a few videos here and there, I've never seen anyone properly explain why. And as someone who considers this both their personal favorite Fangame series and the best Fangame series, I feel it is my obligation to explain so. I want to share why I love this trilogy so damn much. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe down below and turn on the notification bell. Also become a channel member for content perks, all optional but it'd be appreciated if you did. This is Dayshift at Freddy's, the best Five Nights at Freddy's Fangame series. Dayshift at Freddy's 1. Where do I start? Well, the fact that the main menu music is Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley, but in the tune of the Torador March and Music Box as sound just shows what you're about to get into when playing this game. So, you're Jack Kennedy working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in Colorado, where you're managed by this game's phone guy, Steven Stevenson. Yes, that is his name. You're going to be a day shift worker that must perform in a springlock suit, serve pizzas, all that jazz. However, hiding in the safe room is Dave Miller, this game's version of Afton, where you have the choice to either help him and murder 5 children or save the children. Based on this decision and more, there are numerous paths you can take which result in certain endings. Now, by far, what this game excels at is the comedy. This game is funny. Really funny, actually. Unlike the next games in the trilogy that attempt to have numerous amounts of story and heartwarming moments and dark moments and all that sorts, this game has none to little of that. This game's goal is quite simply to be a shitpost to get you laughing. And the best part is, it works! Whether that be the Rickroll main menu, which I already mentioned, certain lines like didn't do nothing, thank, some of Dave's lines,
hello there, old sport. Pick up the facts, pick up the facts, pick up the facts. Grand Canyon, Grand Canyon, Grand Canyon. Not so fast, Papas. 'Twas I, Orbishy man, my associate here. Kitty Strangler version 2, Vegas, baby.
some of the lines from the cops.
Yeah, that must suck. The bear is on fucking fire. Repeat, the bear is on fucking fire. Oh god, the decoy midget is on fire. Evacuate the building. Leave the decoy midget, he's not worth it.
The pure absurdity that comes with the health inspector.
I am the health inspector. I want to inspect the pizzeria's health.
As well as this classic. Pure gold. However, what is by far the most memorable joke from this game and the whole trilogy is the running joke of yiffing Foxy, whether it be the constant mentions of it, a game in the arcade dedicated to it, or the fact you can actually fucking do it. It's all so damn off the wall, but it remains hilarious. There's also divining Chica's hot bird ass, which is not as memorable as yiffing Foxy, but it's also a thing you can do in the game. All of these jokes and more help contribute to making this game a memorable experience. As well as that, almost every character has a text-to-speech voice, which makes it so much more funny. Another aspect of this game that makes this game really funny is the fact that 90% of the assets in this game are stock images, from the rooms to even some of the characters. In terms of the characters, my favorite stock images are the ones of the two cops that appear on day 5. The main one and the one that shoots down either Breadbear and or Farfor. The stock images for the kids are just great, especially the latex midget. In terms of the room stock images, the ones of the arcade, the bathroom, and the outside of Freddy's are hilarious, and the other stock images surprisingly serve as a decent atmosphere that fits in with the location. The only original assets to be found in the game are the animatronic models, Dave's model, and the minigames, which all make sense to be original. Also, speaking of stock images that provide atmosphere, the game is surprisingly engaging from an immersion standpoint, and that's mostly because while this game is entirely a shitpost through and through, there's still stuff you can do in the game that would actually fit if you were working at Freddy's during the day, whether that be putting on a springlock suit and performing for children, serving pizza, judging kids' artwork and deciding whether it gets hung up or not, playing games in the arcade, and more. And speaking of the arcade, the two games you can play are just something else. Foxy Yuff 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 is self-explanatory, and Breadbear is surprisingly pretty fun to play. Even comes with an ending if you beat it, which I'll get to very soon. Now, the other aspects of this game that makes it so memorable are the characters. First of all, there's Steven, this game's phone guy, which in this game he's meant to serve as a typical strict boss that is always watching their employees like a hawk in case they make one mistake. Now, what I love about Steven in this game is the fact that this game serves as a setup to Dayshift to Freddy's 3 and his themes. Basically, what it sets up is that Steven treats his workers like utter shit. So shit that he ends up going out of his way to frame Jack for the murders, not knowing if he's actually guilty or not, all just to save his own ass, as he puts it. Besides this neat setup for the future, Steven's just a funny character all around and has some great lines. However, by far, the best character in this game is the aubergine man himself, Dave Miller. I already showed you some of his best voice lines when I was talking about this game's comedy, but he really does steal the show in this game. He's Afton, but with a quirky sense of humor. In the FNAF games, Afton was a serious villain. He was the murderer. In this game, while he's still a murderer, he's also into Vegas. He's also into throwing animatronic foxes into canyons. He's into strippers. Dave is just Dave, and that's why I love him. Even with this, he also contributes to what is by far the biggest decision you can make in the game, that being whether to help him or not with killing the children. This game also sets up Dave and Jack's chemistry, which is a huge theme in the later games. Now, speaking of Jack Kennedy in this game, well, he's just a POV character, nothing more. Some of his dialogue choices can be really funny, but that's to him in this game. He's just a perspective. He's just a normal, average employee at Freddy's. Later on in the trilogy, Jack is explored way more. He's given more personality, more background, more lore, all of that. The most we know about Jack in the first Dayshift game is what he looks like. He is his orange self in this game. That's it. Hell, in this first game, we don't even know his name is Jack yet. He's either called Old Sport, Employee, Orange Man, Orange Guy, Tangerine, or Kitty Strangler version 2. Jack is not the only quote-unquote important in the series later on character that is first introduced in this game but not explored. This game also introduces D. Kennedy, aka the Puppet, and as well as the real Fredbear, who would both go on to play bigger roles in the later games. In terms of the real Fredbear, he's good in this game because he's set up to be this angelic goddess character, whether through his text-to-speech voice and the fact he's a realistic bear version of Fredbear, but the second Dayshift game gives him more spotlight and more emphasis. There's other characters like Matt, who's hilarious with the jokes of him being a virgin and everything, the health inspector, the cops, the animatronics, to even Breadbear, Farfor, Cool Cat, and the Honey Monster. Breadbear originating from a fan edit posted on the FNAF subreddit around FNAF 4 of what a fixed version of Nightmare Fredbear would look like. Farfor originates from a Palestinian children's show from the 2000s called Tomorrow's Pioneers, which was infamous for its themes of anti-Semitism, Islamism, anti-Americanism, and more. Cool Cat originated from a movie series of the same name created by Derek Savage, which the movie Cool Cat Saves the Kids, specifically was infamous for its horrible movie production and quality and terrible messages about bullying, with the creator of the movies, Derek Savage, also being infamous for not being able to take constructive criticism and would literally falsely copyright strike and take down negative reviews on YouTube of his movies. And last but not least, Honey Monster originates from a cereal brand sold in the UK called Honey Monster Puffs. The fact these guys are in this game as a form of parody is just so funny, especially since two of the four mentioned characters are considered infamous and controversial. Also, Breadbear just has this classic line,
I demand the flesh and virtue.
And now we carry on to the game's endings. There's a total of 11. There's the awesome ending, which after naming yourself Direct Doggo or requesting Steven to get a doggo as a favor for attacking the health inspector, you're given your own personal doggo, and the ending screen is just so fucking cute and adorable. I love it. Doggos are cute, man. There's the Bono ending, which you get for beating every level in the Freddy game in the arcade, including the one that is illegal in all 50 states, especially Idaho. You'll be greeted by Irish singer and songwriter Bono, where he'll berate Jack for beating Fredbear because of how stupid it apparently was to beat such a ridiculous arcade game, and then Bono shoots Jack. There's the Springlocks ending, which you get by doing a flip on the final day. The ending screen is Cool Cat's head edited over Springtrap from one of the rare death screens from FNAF 3. There's also the Stuffed ending, which to get it on the final day, you must either choose the option to get your brain scooped out by Freddy or die during battle when you're attacking Freddy and Foxy. As well, there's the tragic ending, which you get by winning said battle against Freddy and Foxy. Real quickly, one of my only criticisms with this game is that the battle you have to win to get this ending is so RNG based that it's actually kind of ridiculous. It ultimately doesn't matter though, because the tragic ending is one of my personal favorites because of how funny it is. Steven cries over the fact that you kill his supposed only love, Foxy, and he goes on and on about it, even citing that Freddy and Foxy were the only two animatronics people loved at the pizzeria and that nobody liked Bonnie and Chica. Then after Steven screams at Jack, it cuts to a gravestone that is just pure gold. Also, the name Fred Ward just makes me laugh every fucking time. There's also the bad ending, which you get by either doing nothing throughout the whole game, or by accepting Dave's offer but not going through with it. Fredbear will come in during the final day to attack the pizzeria, and then you. On the other hand, you can get the mediocre ending, where to get this, you must start the path for the happiest day ending, but not end up going through with it. On the final day, instead of Fredbear that attacks the pizzeria and then attacks you, it's Farfor that does it. The ending screen being a screen cap of a Tomorrow's Pioneers episode, but with Farfor's eyes edited to be red. Then there's the 4 biggest endings in this game, 3 of which are part of the evil route of the game, which consists on agreeing to murder the children with Dave, disposing the bodies out to the dumpster for Dave, and smashing the cameras and office monitor for Dave. After that is when you get either the soapy ending and or crafty ending, or the gnarly ending based on your big decision on day 4. For the soapy ending, you must choose either Fredbear or Farfor, and then one of them will attack the pizzeria, but the cops will be successful in shooting it down, and then Jack gets sent off to jail. To get the crafty ending, you must go for the same steps as the soapy ending. However, beforehand, if you attacked the health inspector or prevented the FNAF 4 bullies from putting the crying child's head in an animatronic's mouth, Steven will owe you a favor, which you must select the favor of total immunity from the murders. At the end, instead of Jack that gets arrested, it's Dave that gets arrested. And then there's the gnarly ending, in which you must select both Fredbear and Farfor to attack the pizzeria on the final day, which they're successful in doing so because the cops can't shoot them down. The pizzeria starts burning down, Jack and Dave escape during the chaos, and if you're a fan of this series, you know where they go to get away. Las Vegas, baby. Now this is by far my favorite ending in the entire game. The ridiculousness of it all is just the perfect encapsulation of what makes Dayshift at Freddy's 1 a good game. Whether it be just Dave being Dave, the fact it's Las Vegas they're going to, the ending screens being a montage of what they're doing there, including the strip club, as well as the iconic music that goes with it, being In Your Arms by Kevin MacLeod respectively. This ending is the definition of the first Dayshift game. And the final ending of the game is the Happiest Day ending, which to get this, you must refuse Dave's offer to kill the children, repair the Happiest Day minigame in the arcade, and then follow Dee's instructions to free the spirits. For Freddy, you have to rickroll the pizzeria. For Bonnie, you must find his face and put it back on him. For Chica, you just must serve a pizza. For Foxy, you must destroy the salad bar. And for Golden Freddy, you must blow up the bathroom urinal with a firecracker. Then on the final day, when Farfor is attacking, the real Fredbear comes in to save the day, and you're free to go. Then you meet up with the spirits in a place that looks like heaven and a typical happy ending. Now, this ending is one of my only major criticisms of this game. This ending's just weak, and the reason for that is it's so conflicting on what tone it wants to be. It's got the FNAF 4 Night 6 cutscene music to make it all sound sad and emotional, adding on with the semi-decent stock imagery of heaven, but at the same time, its text-to-speech voices and the things that they're saying makes me also think they don't want you to take this seriously. It's confusing. Should I be sad or should I be laughing? I don't know. But anyway, that is basically Dayshift at Freddy's 1. Besides a few dialogue inconsistencies, like for example how you could be going for the crafty ending where Steven knows ahead of time you were involved in the murders, but then on the final day when confronted by the cops, Steven acts like he just found out. There really isn't that much negative things I can say about this game. I guess this game is too short in comparison to the next 2 games, which for me is the main reason why I consider this the weakest game in the trilogy, but even then, I think this is still a really good shitpost game, and it's extremely funny, and it's even a perfect setup to some of the aspects in the next two games. This game basically serves as the first step in what I like to call the development cycle, where the developer is learning and this is their learning curve game. They're just trying to see what works, what doesn't work, what they could add or remove, etc, etc. And if anything, it gets me excited for the rest of the trilogy. And with that, that's exactly what we're gonna do right now. Dayshift at Freddy's 2 is where the trilogy starts to get really good, kicking off with the menu music this time being a Torador March-esque version of All-Star by Smash Mouth with Withered Freddy flipping off the player. Anywho, Jack Kennedy is back at another Freddy's location, the phone guy this time being Peter Kennedy. Yep, it's explained later in the series, don't worry. Returning in this game are familiar faces like Dave, Matt, certain activities like judging artwork, wearing mascot costumes, playing arcade games, and the fact you can get multiple endings. However, what's new in this game are new faces like Ronaldo the Dough Master and Jimbo the Janitor. New animatronics, this time being the toy animatronics. The classic animatronics from Dayshift 1 appear, but as the Wizards, kept away in parts and service behind the stage. And the other new aspect about this game is the greater scope. So yeah, if you couldn't guess already, this game is basically Dayshift at Freddy's 1, but bigger, and in my opinion, better and improved. This game takes every aspect in Dayshift 1 and basically takes a greater and grander scope. The fact that this location is bigger, the fact there's much more activities to do in the game. For example, you can go on the office computer, which has a lot of very interesting things you can do, ranging from posting on the FNAF subreddit to the Dayshift at Freddy's 2 Game Jolt page, to ScottGames.com, to YouTube, to looking at personal files from Peter and Dave, to company logs and employee records. There's a lot. Whether it serves as comedy or to serve as world building for the trilogy and its lore, it's very engaging to use. One of the things you can do on there is look at Foxy's head photoshopped on the statue of David, which Peter can kill you for. The fact that making pizza this time has actual steps and someone to guide you throughout, that being Ronaldo respectively. As well, the arcade games have been upgraded. Foxy Yef 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 is essentially the same, but Bread Bear in this game is so much more engaging, mostly because of how much variety there is during the battles and the type of foes you face. It's much more unique, whereas in the first Bread Bear game, there are just set patterns throughout each level. Old characters like Jack, Dave, the real Fredbear, and Dee are also explored more, which I'll get into soon. As well, there's a lot more Easter eggs and secrets in this game. You can find Stone the Crow from Pop Goes, someone dressed in a suit of Candy the Cat will come in to shoot up Freddy's because of how it was stepping in Candy's territory. Five Nights at Candy's in general is referenced throughout this game too. There's a lot in this, and I like that. This game has also its own gameplay quirks. For one thing, the toy animatronics can randomly attack you because of them detecting you as a criminal on their criminal recognition systems, which you must battle them. It's pretty cool. The only downside with this aspect is the music box mechanic being introduced is kind of annoying and tedious, and the game would be much better without it, especially since you no longer have to worry about it if you're going for an evil route ending or the happiest day ending where either Dave or Dee shut it off respectively. But besides that, there's a lot going on here with this one, and I adore that. The immersion of working at a Freddy's location is still there. Another thing in this game worth praising is the comedy yet again. Now, unlike Dayshift 1, where the only thing this game attempted to do was just shitposty comedy and nothing more, this game actually tries to have a balance between comedy and lore. For the lore, we'll get there soon, but this game maintains its comedy, and I can respect that. Even with this, though, I do have to say, Dayshift at Freddy's 2 is the funniest game in the entire Dayshift trilogy. Why? Because despite this balance, its comedy goes fucking AWOL and attempts to be so apeshit that it ends up being almost hilarious the entire time. Also, the stock images are back and better than ever, whether it be for atmosphere catching or purely just to be funny. Same with the text-to-speech voices. I also love the game over and notice of termination screens in this game. The game over screen literally being Jack sitting on a park bench with Toy Freddy is so awkwardly funny, it's great. And the notice of termination screen is just so bonkers but hilarious. This game's comedy shines. However, that isn't the only aspect in this game that shines. This game also shines in the characters, world building, and lore. A lot is explored more in this game. This game is about expansion. Each character introduced from the previous Dayshift game is given much more to them that makes them feel more like actual characters. With Dave, we learn more about his motivations for the crimes he commits. For Peter, we learn more about the tragic lives that phone guys have to go through, and we also learn a bit about Peter's past before he became a phone guy. We also start to learn the truth behind the phone guys in the series, that being being they're made of dead employees from springlock failures, all done in a factory. Dayshift 3 shines much more light on this. In terms of Jack, we know a lot more about him. We find out his name first off, being Jack Kennedy. We find out his home and family situation. We find out why he's orange. We find out a bit of backstory about him, like his promise to Fredbear, the springlock failure that nearly killed him, and the job position he was at Freddy's before said springlock failure, that being a night guard respectively. We find out a bit why he continues to work at Freddy's locations despite his misadventures working at them, which is explored way more in the third game. We found out bits and pieces of his personality, both good and bad. Jack is fleshed out here, same with Dee a little bit. She still has a lot more character development in Dayshift 3, but in comparison to the first game, we know a bit about Dee more. We see more of her personality of being a protector. We see her and Jack's chemistry, which is really good since they're both brother and sister. The real Fredbear also becomes more fleshed out this time. Dayshift 2 is by far his best appearance. He's relevant in regards to Jack's promise to him. The real Fredbear continues to have a perfect and angelic godlike approach. We see his more confrontational side when it comes to him confronting Dave in the true ending and Jack in the end ending. Matt also returns and he's still his virgin self. We also have the new characters like Jimbo the janitor and Ronaldo the doughmaster, who are both funny characters and fun to interact with in the pizzeria. We also got the toy animatronics and the Wizards, who have great lines, and the fact that the toys can randomly show up in rooms of the pizzeria for you to interact with, plus their gameplay addition with the random battles because of their criminal recognition systems. And then, there is one more new character I want to touch on who's heavily focused in the third Dayshift game, that being Henry Miller. Dave's original partner in crime before Jack, and as we'll find out, is the sole reason for everything that's gone wrong at Freddy's and has ruined many of the characters' lives, even Dave's. Through some of these characters, one huge theme that the trilogy centers around starts to get explored, and it is, to me, the part in the original FNAF games that was barely focused on that Dayshift at Freddy's does focus on. That being in regards to Fazbear Entertainment, the company. We start to see how truly scummy and terrible this company is. We start to learn the horribleness and its impact, and we learn even more about it in Dayshift 3. The characters and lore introduced are heavily engaging for the player to find out. On top of that, one huge advancement for this game in comparison to the first that I didn't mention is that the writing and the dialogue is heavily improved. It's wittier, clever, more interesting, and entices the player. And there's just better moments that make you feel something, excluding endings, which I'll get to very soon. Hell, there are two moments in this game that I consider heavily underrated in the Dayshift trilogy that gets me in the feels. The first of these moments is for the Evil Route endings, where Peter and Jack have a serious and deep conversation. In this, Peter officially knows for 100% sure that Jack assisted in murdering the children, and he goes on about how much of a monster or non-human Jack is, and even goes into detail about how the parents of the victims would feel, bringing up no gifts under the Christmas tree and leaving nothing for them to bury in their caskets during their funerals. As well, when the conversation's over and Peter fires Jack, Peter breaks the rule placed in the phone guy's system not to swear to basically tell Jack to get the fuck out of the pizzeria. When that happens, that is when you know this was serious and it works really well. It makes you feel guilty in a way, and that's all thanks to the excellent writing. And the other moment in this game I consider extremely underrated is the good/happiest day ending routes, where Jack is officially free from his employment at Freddy's and Peter rips the red contract that was forcing Jack to stay. Adding on to all that is the all-star music box tune playing that is pitched up to create the emotional feelings. The tone in this scene is also feel good, and that's the magic of the writing in this game.
You know.
And with that, we got the endings of this game, there being a total of 17 this time round. There's the Scrabble ending, which you get for diving into the ball pit with a diving mask on and going through a FNAF world Old Man Consequences dimension like deal, where you'll meet Old Bear Consequences, where you play Scrabble with him until the end of time. There's the soapy ending version 2, where you must buy drugs from the horde of ungrateful toddlers, which you must summon at the ball pit and give them licorice, and then do the drugs in the bathroom, where you go on a massive drug trip, and then you'll wake up in a prison cell and Peter explains what really happened in detail. It's hilarious. There's the sealed off ending where you put on Dave's suit and Dee and Peter think you're Dave and lock you up in the safe room forever. There's the premature ending where after you reject Dave's offer to murder the children, you can alert Dee at the music box and both of you stop Dave before it's too late, and then the same thing as the sealed off ending happens but with Dave instead of Jack. There's the eggplant ending, which you can get by constantly selecting the wrong numbers Dave tells you to dial during the evil routes. The newspaper in regards to it detailing what happened with Dave stuffing a big eggplant up Jack's urethra is hilarious. There's also the Nightman Cometh ending, which you get by losing the Nightman battle in the middle of the game, which, by the way, I forgot to talk about this earlier, but there's a subplot with Withered Freddy in this game during the post-day minigames, which basically serves as a parody of the Nightman Cometh episode from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where Withered Freddy becomes the Dayman and has to fight the Nightman. It's fucking stupid, but it's hilarious at the same time, just like a lot of the jokes in the Dayshift series. There's the confusing ending where you must not choose any route, and then you must set the alarm clock to 1 PM for Friday, and then you'll see a doggo and pet it, which invites you very hard. As a result, you and Peter talk about it in the office, and then you meet Peter at the vet, where it's revealed that apparently the doggo had rabies and there was a switch up. Apparently Jack was supposed to be sent home, and the doggo would be sent to the vet to be put down, but the switch up occurred, and even with this, they've still let Jack in because of his bear suit, and Jack ends up getting put down instead. And the ending frames just the doggo at Jack's house just having a good time, exotic butters and all. This is just stupidly funny. Next is the Marion ending, which you must go with the evil route, but not have enough time to tamper with the animatronics, which at that point, you must set the alarm clock to 1 PM, I don't know, and then on the next day, Peter tells you to go to the prize corner, which then starts an interaction between Jack and Dee. Dee basically calls you out on your bullshit actions, and Dee goes all crazy, and after a bit, Dee gets sharp teeth and kills you. What makes this ending something is most definitely the interaction between Jack and Dee. When you know that these two are siblings, it becomes much more interesting. Here's an interesting one, the Golden Bear Scrotum ending. To get this one, you must refuse both Dave and Peter's offers and then set your alarm for 7:40 AM for Friday's shift. Upon entering, Peter will tell you to get suited up and Dave will assist. You're asked to perform, and it is then revealed that some modifications were made to your Spring Freddy suit, the biggest being that if you stay still for too long, the suit wakes up. The suit ends up waking up and then he bites your head, which then you're presented an image of Jack in the hospital bed. What's so interesting about this ending is the person who voices Spring Freddy / the Golden Bear Scrotum is, that's right, Kellen Goff, the voice actor for Funtime Freddy, Molten Freddy, Fredbear, Glamrock Freddy, and the daycare attendant from the official FNAF franchise. This ending will always stand out to me for solely that, but as well, this ending is just very hilarious too, and Kellen Goff does an amazing voice performance as usual.
You have provoked the Golden Bear Scrotum.
Then there's the Forgotten ending, where you need to be following the evil route, but you need to reject Dave at some point before the day before Jimbo dies in Spring Freddy. Then you need to set your alarm clock to 1 PM for Friday, which results in you missing Friday's shift and coming in Saturday instead. Which then Nightmare Foxy, but with stripper gear, as created by Dave, kills you because Dave meant for Foxy to fuck you and not fuck you up. Then it leads to a comedic parody of the FNAF 4 Night 6 minigame with Jack serving as the crying child, Nightmare Foxy as psychic friend Fredbear, and Peter, Dave, Freddy, and Fredbear serving as the FNAF 1 crew plushies, and Jack is left to be left on life support for the rest of his life. This ending is honestly so hilarious, and the writing is just great as usual. One of my personal favorite endings in this game for how wacky it is. We also have the Abandoned ending, which basically you must be doing the good ending route that involves both Peter and Dee's missions, but on the night before the pizzeria's final day, you must choose not to come at all. Then you'll be greeted by Shadow Doggo, or as we find out in the third game, Blackjack, who talks to you, and then it cuts to the bad ending screen from FNAF 3. Honestly pretty sad because you've basically let down the ones that were important to you. It sorta hurts. Then there's the sorta happy ending, which for this one, you must refuse both Dave and Peter's offers but complete the puppet route. Then you must set your alarm clock for 1 PM when you come in on Saturday. After getting your suit on, Toy Freddy comes over to have a little chat with you, which then Dave comes in and threatens to shoot up the place. Peter then states how the toy animatronics know what guns are because of their criminal recognition systems, which then Toy Freddy proceeds to attack Dave and kill him. And you see, it's the sorta happy ending because Dave is dead and you get to leave Freddy since it's closed, haha. But in all seriousness though, I'm glad Toy Freddy was given much more time in the spotlight, since he's the best toy animatronic in this game for his personality. Toy Freddy, the British lad, fucking rules. There's also the almost happy ending, where you must do everything required for the true ending route, except during the real Fredbear and Dave Trap battle, you must lose to Dave Trap, which then Dave proceeds to bite Peter, then it cuts to a grave for Peter as the ending screen. I honestly see this ending as a depressing one, because once again, you're on the path for the true ending, and you're about to almost have the happiest day happen, but it all goes to shit because of the battle loss. Kinda hurts yet again. Then we got the fairly evil ending, which to get this, you must be doing the evil route path, but during the part where Dave asks you to choose between Foxy or Balloon Boy, you must choose Foxy. Then the next day, you're actually in the point of view of Peter. Also, I just want to add real quickly that I really like how during this ending, we're in another character's perspective. We kind of get that with Withered Freddy during the Nightman battle, but that's not as perspective focused as it is here. We get to see more of the happenings at a Dayshift at Freddy's, but just for a different character. Anyway, after Peter warns Ronaldo about Jack and Dave enters the pizzeria and fights Peter. It's then revealed that Dave was a distraction so Jack can set up the beast in Party Room 1, that being Nightmare Foxy, but dressed as a stripper again. All is a way to get Peter to where it hurts most because, as you already know, Peter loves Foxy. Nightmare Foxy proceeds to bite Peter, and Jack and Dave go off to Vegas, but in this ending, unfortunately, it doesn't show it, it's only implied. Now, we get to the 3 biggest endings in this game. Starting off, I'm actually going to talk about 2 endings as one, because this is technically the same ending, but the other has a certain difference. Those being the radical ending and the N ending. These are obviously the endings for doing the evil route, so just for the radical ending, just like the first game and the gnarly ending, you and Dave get away with it and go to Vegas. And just like the first game, this ending goes hard. However, not my favorite ending in this game, but we'll get there. Now, to get an ending variation, you must do the exact same steps you did for the radical ending, except at the beginning of the game, with what ending you want to continue from, you must choose the gnarly ending, and then you must pick every purple text option there is out of the dialogue choices. And then at the very end, you're confronted by the real Fredbear, who basically calls you out on your crimes, even after making a promise to him in the past, and then you two fight, and you win. Dave ends up getting scared of you, and the ending is basically the radical ending images, except Jack looking more evil and spooky, and Dave getting completely scared. It really is pure evil. What I really like about this ending, though, and this whole route as a matter of fact, is that this is the game that really sells you on how great of a pair Jack and Dave are when they're together. They're a duo of chaos, and that's why it works. They have a great dynamic, and this ending is the living proof of that. And as well for the end ending, we get to see what a more evil and psychopathic Jack would be, and it's so terrifying. Even more so since even Dave, the child murderer, gets scared of him. Also, the stock images are at their best yet again in this game with the images of Vegas, literally superb. And then, we get to my favorite ending in the whole game. The true ending. Just like Jack and Dave, Jack and Peter are also a great dynamic. However, the good feelings pause for a bit because it turns out their plan to seal Dave in didn't work, and Dave escapes and comes out to the pizzeria as Dave Trap and basically plans to ruin it all. He first plans to bite Peter and then deal with Jack later, and Dave plans to label his bite to Peter as the bite of 87. However, he's stopped by the real Fredbear, him of which is just as angelic as always. Then you switch perspectives with the real Fredbear, and as him, you fight Dave. Also, Dave has some funny lines during this battle.
As President George Washington once said, "Fuck off, you British cunt."
Fredbear eventually wins after learning his bite of 87 attack, and he bites and kills Dave, for now. But then Fredbear thanks you for never forgetting his promise and you run off, so you can have your happiest day. Then, we cut to a minigame where Dee is happy that Jack came, and there's a little happiest day celebration with all the spirits Henry and Dave have killed over the years. Dee has her own dialogue about it, and then, this is when the emotional beats of this game start kicking in. Jack, as an employee and company insider, apologizes on behalf of Fazbear Entertainment for what happened to these children, even going into detail about it. So detailed that it hurts so much. It gets you in the feels. And then, the part that really gets me to this day as well, when Jack concludes his speech. Aww. God damn it, it's so sweet. And when you know about the sibling relation between these two, this moment tugs your heartstrings so much more. After this, the spirits and Dee go away, and Jack sees Blackjack, who's proud of what Jack has done. And then, it cuts to the good ending screen from FNAF 3, and then after that, a thank you image of the characters from the first 2 games, Jack, Dave, Peter, and Steven being highlighted. And then, well, there's technically one more part, which is an epilogue of sorts. To get it, you must name yourself Jack Kennedy at the beginning of the game, then when rigging the suit that night with Peter and he asks you if you ever experienced a spring lock failure, you must ask him if he's ever experienced one, and he goes into detail about what happened to him, which gets in the feels too. Then on the final day, you must choose to call him Peter instead of Scott. Then the rest plays out as normal, and then, after the thank you image, it cuts to Peter at his home, and there's someone at the door. That's someone being Jack, who's wet from the storm outside. Peter lets Jack in, and... Jack is happy. He's really happy. Happy as in, he's found home. He feels safe. He's found his loved ones. This epilogue scene also gets me so heart-moved. It's amazing. This ending is my favorite from this game for just the fact that this is all heartwarming. I love this ending, and the epilogue that goes with it makes it much more grand. It's a work of art. And with that, Dayshift at Freddy's 2 is a perfect sequel. What I determine as a good sequel is something that expands the universe and characters and story of the previous, and basically does something new with it or shows more layers. This is exactly what this game does. The story in this game has become more of a priority and has basically turned what was initially a shitpost game into something much more. We also get to see the new perspectives and new layers of the characters and the lore. This game basically took almost every aspect of the first game, but either made it much better and improved on it, or brought in something new to the table with it that gives this game layers. And in my point of view, this is exactly the definition of a great sequel. It's also a perfect example of the next developer cycle. The developer is starting to find their roots with the game to make a much better product than before. It's cool, and even as its standalone game, Dayshift at Freddy's 2 is still pretty good. I adored this game and it did wonders for this trilogy. While not my favorite in the trilogy, it's my second favorite. It's the absolutely amazing continuation of a nerdy great fan game that I expected and wanted. And then we carry on to what is by far the best game in the Dayshift trilogy, and also my favorite FNAF Fangame in general of all time. Dayshift at Freddy's 3 is the best game of the trilogy, hands down, and in addition, my favorite FNAF Fangame of all time. I placed this at number 1 on my top 10 best FNAF Fangames extended remake. I mentioned this was my favorite FNAF Fangame in my Ultimate FNAF Fangame Iceberg. I've also mentioned in streams. I adore this game, and every single time I mentioned it was my favorite Fangame up to this point, I didn't get into huge detail. I briefly did it in the best Fangames remake video, but this is a full detailed review and thoughts on the FNAF Fangame I loved so fucking much. Right away, keeping the running gag strong, I love how this game's menu music is Ocean Man by Ween, but obviously as a music box rendition. So in this game, well, things shake up. In the first 2 Dayshift at Freddy's games, you were just a normal employee at a Freddy's location. Now, in this game, it takes a Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator approach, and Jack, or well, you're now an entrepreneur, or well, owner of a Freddy's location. It even comes with a Tycoon section, once again king to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. I love this shake-up, it's so unique. Sure, being a regular employee again could suffice as a third entry in the series, but I feel like the second game did the most you could do out of that very concept in an exaggerated form. However, the spin from employee to owner gives this game more of an identity and makes it stand out. And since we mentioned it, I might as well talk about the Tycoon. Basically, before each proper day where you walk around the pizzeria, just like the first 2 games, there's a Tycoon-esque section, and with the assistance of your selected phone guy, you can add stuff to your pizzeria and basically manage it, whether that be more rooms, some posters, some stages, including animatronics from a catalog, replacing employees, and much more. Now let me just say this section is basically Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator's Tycoon sections, but honestly kinda better. Look, I love the Tycoon sections in Pizza Sim. They're the best parts about that game besides the powerful ending, and maybe helping you cute bastard. But what Dayshift 3 does differently to make it better in my opinion is I feel like there are much more options you can do. In Pizza Sim, all you do is basically add animatronics, games, or other accessories from a catalog, as well as upgrading the pizzeria layout, dealing with sponsorships, and salvaging animatronics. While Dayshift 3 does do all of the following, there's also much more that makes the pizzeria feel so much more like an actual pizzeria. Once again, you can replace employees, you can add rooms, you can name your own restaurant. On top of that, you can even decide the character that goes on the top of it. And speaking of salvaging animatronics in Pizza Sim, you can do the same in Dayshift 3, but the difference is, in Dayshift 3, you're actively searching for the animatronics to salvage, going to old Freddy's locations and taking what's there, which also, by the way, before I forget, when visiting these locations, I love the callbacks to the trilogy's previous 2 games, but making it more disturbing and eerie since nobody's there anymore. It's spooky, and the music that goes along with it too just sells something quite nostalgic but horrifying. Anyway, yeah, you look for the animatronics in Dayshift, while in Pizza Sim, the animatronics look for you. I just think the fact you look for the animatronics to salvage is much more of a realistic situation and circumstance, and that's surprising considering this trilogy is overall meant to be a parody of the original FNAF games. And while in Pizza Sim, the fact they come for you works well for its story that's going on there, I think from an overall engagement perspective for the Tycoon, it works more for Dayshift to Freddy's 3. And yeah, engagement. The Tycoon sections in this game are so engaging and offer a lot of true gameplay in this game besides the flip side. It's so addicting and fun to choose what you're going to do with your pizzeria. It's interesting decision making and it gives this game so many more opportunities. And just like Pizza Sim, there are certain things you can add in the pizzeria that can help you gain certain endings. The biggest example being Godred, but we'll get to him and all the endings of this game when I'm ready to talk about all of it. But yeah, that's really all I gotta say about the Tycoon segments if we're not including the day sections, which I will talk about. Although, what I didn't mention was one of the rooms you could buy is a strip club. Just to get this out of the way, Dayshift at Freddy's attempts to be more serious in its tone. With that though, there's still comedy in this game, and when the comedy is there, it's so fucking hilarious. The first day alone is just so funny. Whether that be naming your pizzeria Bear, the news reports about an orange maniac reviving a bear worshipping pizza cult, stealing a wedding cake, all of those jokes are just pure gold. There are also Dave's Start Your Own Freddy's Pizzeria Kit 1993 edition tapes before the first 3 days, each to serve as parodies of the intro cutscene in Pizzeria Simulator. The third one's more for the lore, so I'll just speak of the first 2 for right now. The first 2 tapes are hilarious. It's all because of how Dave describes certain things in the tapes. Also, this one joke will always make me laugh hard every single time.
I am your friendly company representative. I am not a child murderer.
Also, this game has, in my opinion, the funniest joke in the whole trilogy, no cap. Remember how in the second game it broke the 4th wall a bit with the narrator speaking to Jack about how evil he is in the evil route? Well, he does the same thing here if you're going for the evil route, except this time, after he speaks to you about how truly evil you are, he, a fucking voice in Jack's head, somehow drives away to escape from Jack. It's so stupid, it's so ridiculous, but man, it cracks me up every time. It's gold. I think the true reason why these jokes hit hard in the game is because of how much the comedy is not the primary focus, so therefore the jokes being sort of far in between when they come in, they're a laugh riot. I guess it still makes the comedy in this game very genius, and even then, regardless how much it's used, I'm glad the randomness and crazy humor the previous 2 games had is at least still here, and it's still funny when it occurs. Another aspect I want to touch on somewhat quickly is that the original assets in the game are at their fullest in this game. The previous 2 games had original models for the animatronics and originally made assets for the minigames, and while this game still has both, there's much more originality in the assets. The biggest aspect of them all is a lot of the moments in this game being drawn, from the main menu, to the Start Your Own Freddy's Pizza Kit bits, to some of the lore cutscenes, to the final battle. It gives this game so much more flavor, and it's all well drawn too. The artists of this game equally all did a great job, and their efforts should be praised. Also, the minigame graphics are improved this time around for the pizzeria's management tycoon, and the flip side, there are noticeably more details and more colors, and it all looks nice. I'm really respecting the improvements. Speaking of the improvements, one thing this game provides in the trilogy that's an improvement from the previous 2 are the gameplay side of things. I mentioned this briefly when discussing how fun the Tycoon sections are, but I will say more. In the previous 2 games, while still fun and engaging, it wasn't really true gameplay. Besides the minigames after each day and the games in the arcade, it was just interactions with you walking around by selecting from a UI menu, and that's where the game got its fun, which obviously paid off. But in this game, there's so much more actual gameplay, whether that be yet again the Tycoon sections, which have already gone on about how addicting they are, but there's also the flip side sections, which basically have battles in it which play out like Five Nights at Fuckboys. It's a massive step up, and I really like that about this game. Another aspect I want to speak about before I forget about it is its game's music. This game has great music, whether that be during the Pizzeria Kit tapes, the Tycoon sections, the flip side, and my favorite tracks in this game, all of the music tracks that play before and during the Henry Miller boss fight, and all of the music that plays in the true ending. But we'll get to those when we do. But back to the game's music in general, before you head into the location for the day, you're given a playlist of music you can play in the pizzeria, and the music choices contain both music from the previous 2 games and music made for the game. There's Never Guy Gave You Up, All-Star, I'm a Believer, Ocean Man, Spooky Scary Skeletons, there's a lot. This is good for making the pizzeria seem like a real pizzeria. It's cool. There's even an option to surprise you with what music is selected, which is neat. In regards to the pizzeria, there are multiple rooms that you can choose to add in the Tycoon. The arcade makes a reappearance with Foxy Yiff Yiff Yiff, which works just as the same as the previous 2 games, and there's Bread Bear Slots, which isn't actually a shooter game this time, it's a slots game. I miss the original Bread Bear shooter games, but this one's fine. There's also the prize corner, which is where Matt returns. It has the same deal as the previous 2 games where you can buy stuff at the prize corner from Matt. There's also a party room you can buy, there's a supply closet, there's the kitchen you can buy which inhabits the ghost of Ronaldo, there's of course God Red Shrine, which is important for one of the endings, and there's the last but absolutely not least, we got the strip club, and there are a bunch of shenanigans with that one. Now we're gonna get into the characters, and while doing so, we're actually going to this time start with the characters that aren't important, because when I discuss the important ones, it's going to be a good segue into talking about what this game brought in regards to lore. Since we were just talking about the viable strip club, let's talk about Oscar Lunowski, the man who's in the stripper Foxy suit for the area. He is so damn kooky but hilarious. I adore him, his poses are just great, and his text-to-speech voice is perfect for him. Also, he and Jack have some interesting interactions. Very interesting. The next character I want to discuss is the health inspector's son. That's right, son. It isn't the original health inspector from the first game. Also, according to the Sun, apparently the boss fight between Jack and the health inspector in the first game with Jack winning was canon. That's neat to know when it comes to this trilogy's lore. Anyway, just like his father, the Sun is just as funny in this game. Same voice and same stock image and same kind of jokes. Similar to the first game, it's hilarious. Glad they brought the health inspector back into some form, even if it isn't the same guy. There's also the animatronics from the previous games, and they basically maintain the personalities and jokes that made them great before, so that's cool. This is when we start getting to the interesting characters, and to kick those off, let's start with the game's biggest new character, Godred. Godred is basically the lefty character of this game. Similar to Pizza Sim, he has a significantly decreased price of $1, and he's given the do not buy treatment. When you do buy him and put him on stage, he's basically seen as a god or cult leader-esque character. There's a whole ending dedicated to this dude as well, which I'll get into when I discuss the game's endings. The real Fredbear is also in this game, but he doesn't appear in it very much. The most we get with him is him being present when Jack's pizzeria is burning and Jack burns himself. However, even with this, the real Fredbear is still referenced throughout the game and is still implied to be a huge deal, a huge motivator for Jack to continue doing what he's doing throughout the events of the game. While not having much of an appearance, he's still important in this game, and I feel like this role does wonders for him. Reason being is that it portrays him as this god character much more like he already was in the first 2 games, and I don't know which portrayal I prefer, but either way, it's still an interesting approach with the character in this game. There's another new character in this game, that being Jacob Adams. He's a child that gets abducted and murdered by Dave Trap at the beginning of the game, and then he enters in the flip side. He takes the form of Golden Freddy when he does. Later on that night, when Jack and Dave encounter him in the first layer of the flip side, Jacob recognizes Dave's voice and a boss battle occurs. After it's over, Jack and Dave start to learn what happened to him. So Jacob, while not that important to the game overall, still contributes to the setup of the game's story. He sets up that there's someone out there, leading to the reveal of Dave Trap. He's a good setup character, and that's really about it to him. Next, we got Dee Kennedy, also known as this game's version of the puppet. We find out in this game that Dee is Jack's younger sister that he and Peter were both responsible for after the death of their parents. Dee's character of being protective and motherly of the innocent is still present in this game, especially since she volunteers to be a part of Jack's quest of freeing lost souls on the flip side. Dee is given much more to do this time around in the game, and it's so amazing to see. She's being utilized, which is always good when you're using an old character from a previous game in your series' story. There's also the phone guys in this game, and their lore is explained so much and given much more detail and focus than any of the previous 2 games combined. We learn more about what happens at the factory and how they get turned into phone guys, and we learn about the true specifics, like how there's multiple generations based on how much a phone guy can remember, you know, their memories. We're also given details on individual phone guy characters, and we also learn about who the first ever ones were. It helps contribute to the fucked up side of Fazbear Entertainment in this universe, which this trilogy excels at. You genuinely start to feel sympathetic for the phone guys, and it can be very upsetting to hear such truths.
While we're on the topic of phone guys, Steven makes a grand return in this game as a character, and my god, he's expanded on so much. You know, in the first Dayshift game, he always seemed like a strict boss that had an eagle eye out for everyone, and even doing heinous actions such as framing Jack for the murders? Well, we're given full confirmation in this game that his character is actually meant to be an abusive one. Steven abused his workers, he treated them horribly, and he admits to it. The moment in the good route when Jack, Dave, and Dee encounter Steven is an extremely underrated moment. Steven's a piece of shit, and we learn all of it to its core. Steven is another great example of a character from the previous games being expanded on more, making the world building feel more real and structured. And then we get to the other phone guy character, Peter Kennedy, Jack and Dee's brother. Peter is a relatable character in this game. We figure more about his struggles, about his life, we found out much more about him. He's given much more detail than he was given in Dayshift too. Now in this game, Dave is an extremely interesting case. Why is that? Well, let me ask you something. Do you love Dave so much as a character that despite being a child murderer, you wanted to somehow sympathize with him but without feeling terrible and guilty? Well, this game pulls an absolutely genius twist with him here that successfully makes that happen. What they basically do here is they introduce a feral side and a peaceful side to him. It makes them two separate entities. Basically a good Dave, which is the Dave we grew up with in the flip side, and an evil Dave who's in the real world and goes by Dave Trap. Dave Trap is basically Dave in the spring Bonnie suit he was foolishly trapped in during the good ending route of Dayshift 2, and it's revealed with him that the events of FNAF 3 did happen with him. He ended up going to Fazbear's Fright, but while there, he was hoping to find Jack, and he's apparently been searching for him for a long time, and after you find him, you're given a choice whether or not to salvage him, and then later, he'll enter the pizzeria, and you have the choice to whether or not to assist him yet again with child murder. If you pick to assist him, Dave Trap is basically your partner in crime yet again, just like the previous game's evil routes. If you reject, he basically becomes this cleaning monster to Jack that just won't leave him alone. With any ending route you take, we learn something different about Dave Trap, and it's all very interesting to take in. And as for the peaceful and good Dave we come across in the flip side, for these new sympathetic feelings for him, we learn more about his background and more about his true character, and it's legitimately really engaging, especially when he talks about the circus and how he met Henry. Damn. And speaking of, now it's time to discuss Henry. In my eyes, and most likely a lot of others, Henry is the main villain of the Dayshift Freddy's trilogy, not Dave. We just see Dave more, but when you learn everything there is about him, you can see who's seriously the most vindictive one out of the two. Like I already mentioned back when we discussed Henry briefly in the Dayshift 2 section, what makes Henry being the villain very interesting is that it's a huge juxtaposition to Henry in the original FNAF games. In the original FNAF games, Henry was a hero just like Michael. He planned the events of Pizzeria Simulator, the events that were meant to free every remaining soul and literally burn Aft into hell. It's a massive contrast, and the big reason I feel for this is to help play one of the major themes in this trilogy. That being that Fazbear Entertainment genuinely sucks, and Henry, also being a founder of Fazbear Entertainment in this Fangame series, perfect fit. Henry is so dastardly, from the chosen text-to-speech voice being perfect for the character, his diverse vocabulary of evil, his theme music, to even the final battle for the good ending, but I'll get there when I get there, discussing in huge detail. We also see much more of how evil he can be when playing the evil route. Again, I'll get into detail much later. Henry Millard's an awful person, affecting all of the main characters somehow in a negative way. He is this evil that needs to be purged, and it only makes the story of this game even stronger. However, you can't just have a strong antagonist for a huge story to take place. What you also need is a strong hero. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to discuss the final character for this character section, Jack Kennedy. I don't know if this is considered a hot or cold take upon the people, but in my opinion, Jack is the best character in Dayshift Freddy's 3. That's right, the POV main character is what I feel is the best one. Why? Well, we learn so much more about Jack's character to a point where we're able to fully follow his journey. He's a character worth putting time and investing into. Jack is much more than a POV. He's a full character. Long gone are the days of how he was portrayed in Dayshift 1 where we didn't know anything about him besides what he looked like. We got a character who has goals, a journey, a full personality, and growth just like the other mains. He's given much more depth and more to work with. Every character interaction between him and others are really good, whether that be for story or just for humor. Because of the spotlight focus, Jack shines a lot, and by the good ending, we see that a lot especially. You know, ignoring the evil routes or any moments in the series where he's a cheeky troublemaker, Jack is a man of his word in all the best ways possible. He's also given much more emotion, and that's through his voice, whether that be during the final goodbye to Dave in the good ending.
Dave, you are a complete and utter weirdo. It shouldn't be at all hard to say goodbye to you. And yet, it is.
Or when he's telling Dave Trap off during the neutral routes.
I literally bailed when I saw you in that rotting pizzeria. Oh, God, you reek. Ugh. I don't want you in here. Go take a bath, Stinky.
Absolutely stellar and believable performance. Oh, and before I conclude the characters, yeah, voices. In Dayshift 2, there would be minimal real voice acting, but it's this game that fully brings real people voice acting into the series, and everyone did an outstanding job. By far, Jax was the most well done, but everyone else did great. I want to talk about the endings for this game, at least most of them. I want to save the good ending, evil ending, and a certain other ending for later, but in terms of the others, here it goes. There are noticeably less endings in this game than the previous two games, which was shocking to say the least. There's of course the Ball Pit and Music Man endings, which don't really count as endings, but more so ways to die in this game, which proceeds with screens. And here's the other real endings besides the main 3 routes. The Connect 4 ending, which involves you diving into the ball pit with the diving mask, and you'll have to go through 3 FNAF World-esque paths in the same vein as the second Dayshift game, and hilarity ensues, and also the return of old bear consequences. The Flamey ending is similar to the mediocre ending in Pizzeria Simulator, where you must do nothing. Dave calls Jack to tell him that he didn't want to break into the restaurant because it was depressing, and then the phone guy hires a bunch of furries as actors as a last-ditch effort. Jack then just burns the place to the ground. Honestly hilarious. The foul ending is the one that involves Godred. You must name the restaurant Bear, make Godred the primary mascot of the establishment, you must put him on stage, you must get a goat from Phone Guy, which then Jack sacrifices the goat to Godred, and then Jack, upon entering his home that night, will come across Godred in his room and starts praying to him. This ending's also hilarious simply because of the religious but comedic tones this provides. He's literally treating an animatronic like a prophet or god, and it's just wonderful. To get the high IQ ending, you must name yourself as Rick Sanchez at the beginning of the game, and then when you get the opportunity to salvage Dave Trap, don't, and then you'll show up as an eggplant. This ending's a reference to the Pickle Rick meme from Rick and Morty, and the ending screen's a reference to a video of a man in a McDonald's embarrassing himself by quoting Rick Sanchez. Yeah, the soapy ending returns in this game, and to get this version, you must yet again buy cocaine from a horde of ungrateful toddlers and snort it in the bathroom. Just like the previous games, will go through many hallucinations and then wind up in prison, which the phone guy will be there to explain what really happened. The explanations for what really happened are still hilarious and just as funny as the previous game's soapy ending. Those are the endings in this game besides the main 3 routes. Before I cover those, I just want to talk about how this game treats its story this time around. There are certainly funny moments in this game, and this game's comedy is amazing. However, if you remember from Dayshift 2, the story was getting more serious in a way. There was more dark and deep emotional moments and story beats. Dayshift 3 is the game in my eyes that fully embraces this aspect of the series. Besides the comedy, this is the other reason why this Fangame Trilogy is beloved. The dialogue, especially this time around, is more tightly written. It's more enticing. As well, just like the previous game, we learn much more about the characters. We find out more about the backstory of the phone guys especially. We also find out more about Dave, we find out more about Jack, we find out more about Dee, more about Henry, even more about the company. Speaking of the company, I have yet to fully talk about an aspect of this story in this game trilogy that's vital to the emotional core of this game. This is an area that the FNAF games don't even touch on that much, that being Fazbear Entertainment. In these games, the company is portrayed corrupt, awful, greedy, twisted, and miserable. This company has broken a whole family apart, the Kennedys, and this game in the trilogy shows this the most. This company is a damn sin. It's these characters that are living proof of what the company has significantly done, and it serves as the grounds for the story. It's good shit. The flip side is also a very good addition to the trilogy's universe. It serves as more explanation for some of the more paranormal aspects of the series. A lot is learned from the spirits and how all this stuff works in this universe, and it's good for building up everything the story's trying to tell. This trilogy's story gets really fucking good with this game, and it heavily shows. Without further ado, let's look at the main 3 endings. The first of these 3 endings are simply just called End. To get this, you must skip the flip side segments and refuse Dave's offer. Then your Freddy's location becomes a hit. It's popular and business is actually going well. Dave eventually shows up back, and then Jack goes at him. Jack, with his perfect voice performance, successfully gets Dave the fuck off. I genuinely love this part because it shows an assertive and fed up side of Jack and gives him much more of a character, and we finally see him stand up for himself against Dave's utter bullshit. We also get to understand more why Jack likes the fact he owns a Freddy's. He doesn't have to be the poor employee that suffers anymore. He can make someone else do it himself. It's satisfying to him. Then there's a time skip of 57 years and Jack's in the hospital. Jack and the phone guy of choice have a discussion on what is Jack's last day. Freddy's is now in every continent and is now even a cereal mascot. However, it's brought up Jack didn't have any real friend or family connections or relationships, and Jack is even asked if he has any regrets, which Jack responds with,
No, fuck that.
Perfect, just fucking perfect. I really like this ending and its path because it shows Freddy's actually being a success, and it's good for if you want to just play this just to run your pizzeria. It's really cool. Then there's the evil route ending. Basically, just be on Dave Trap's side the whole time, and then it'll eventually lead to Dave giving you eternal life. Then eventually leads to the both of you going to Vegas like usual. Really satisfying like always. However, that's not it. Oh no. There's more this time. After the montage, it cuts to you and Dave having a connection. Dave is unhappy. He takes Jack to Fredbear's to basically show the thing he built all himself, which is the Faz bunker. He takes Jack to the office and shows him a box. A box full of many things, but most of all, Dee's scarf. Dee then takes Jack to a dark room and Dave realizes he's still unhappy. He regrets giving Jack eternal life, but just then, Dr. Henry Miller comes in and starts possessing Jack. He talks to Dave through Jack, then Jack basically fucking breaks Dave, and Jack and Henry basically become partners, Henry even citing that Dave was weak and didn't see him as a partner. The ending ends with Jack laughing and Henry saying he always comes back. This time there being no ending screen like the others, and the game just crashes. This game is very ominous and creepy near the end, but I love this ending because it shows a completely different side to Dave. It shows that he can be unhappy about the things he enjoys and he can feel regret. And we start to see his level a little bit when Jack talks down to him. It's very intriguing and it makes Dave a much more interesting character and puts into perspective how Dave and Henry's relationship actually is like. And then, the final ending in this game, the good ending. My favorite ending in the entire game and in the entire trilogy. Basically, just agree to helping out on the flip side and refuse any offer of Dave's and you basically got it. Through this ending path, we learn so much more about the world of this game and the characters, especially in the flip side. We learn more about Dave, we learn more about Dee, we learn more about Peter, we learn more about Steven, we learn more about Henry, but most of all, we learn more about Jack. Like I said, we learn more about Henry, who has screwed basically every good guy in this game, and Dave over here, and we'll also see the final battle is the ultimate culmination of it all. We also get to see Blackjack, the Shadow Doggo, who is even more developed and is fully confirmed this time to be Jack's soul. Blackjack even joins the cast in the final showdown with Henry. Then, the final day. Jack lures Dave Trap and every animatronic remaining in the series to the pizzeria and burns it all down, very similar to Pizzeria Simulator, basically putting an end to the shit show. Then it leads to the final confrontation of Dr. Henry Miller, his biggest victims versus him. Then it leads to a boss battle which is very interesting and enticing. Up to this point, when it comes to a finale, everything's been perfect. It's starting to feel conclusive. Then Henry ends up losing. Everyone kicks his ass, and Henry's officially dead. And then we get to everyone's final goodbyes. Everyone says goodbye to Jack one last time. It's all sweet and emotional. And then we get to Dave and Jack's final goodbye. And this one by far hurts the most, and it's the most emotional and heartbreaking out of the goodbyes. Dave is the only one Jack tells the truth to about how he can't go with him. He lacks a proper soul. It's very sad and honestly makes me tear up. Jack doesn't get a happy ending, even for everything he's been through. But while he can't have a happy ending, he gives someone else a happy ending. Dave. He gives Dave Blackjack his stray soul as a way for Dave to have some form of Jack in the afterlife with him. It's beautiful. It's heart-wrenching. And then Dave says,
Thanks for putting me back together.
I can't. I just fucking can't. That's beautiful. Then it cuts to Freddy's burning. Jack then notices the real Fredbear and gives him a silent thank you for fulfilling his promise to him completely. After that, Jack becomes one with the fire and burns with the rest. Then there's a news broadcast that talks about what happened, and then masterpiece. Everything about this ending is literally perfect. It's a perfect ending to a trilogy of games with developed lore that tugs your heartstrings. This is the perfect finale. Dayshift at Freddy's is complete. What makes me love this ending even more is the fact that it's the end. Nothing comes after this, which is very unlike Five Nights at Freddy's itself, which after its finale or ending that people considered satisfying, it had lore afterwards that many people saw as pointless and even claimed to ruin the series. Dayshift at Freddy's doesn't suffer from this. It has a bookend. As it currently stands, nothing's tarnished, and it makes the beauty of this game's ending much more apparent and makes the Dayshift trilogy better as a whole. Dayshift at Freddy's 3 is nearly perfect in my opinion. It has everything that I could have ever wanted from a true finale to the series, and considering where the series started as a shitpost, it's beyond impressive what the series became. This is part of the developer cycle where the developer fully understands what they're doing when it comes to game development, and they're in the final step, which in this case is Dial Down, where the developer takes everything they learned and does a step up above the game they put every sense of their game development knowledge into. By the way, I plan to make a review similar to this for Dialtown someday because it's seriously an underrated gem that you all should check out. But anyway, the development cycle is well represented in this trilogy with the main menus of the games of all things, I'd say. Dayshift 1's menu represents the beginning of the cycle with just an image of Freddy from the original Freddy's game. Dayshift 2's menu represents the next step, which while has the stock image background, it's got original models and is starting to become a beast of its own. And by Dayshift 3, one of the final parts of the development cycle, the menu is all original assets. Shows how far the games have gone. Dayshift and Freddy's 3 will always stand out to me as a beautiful game full of both heartwarming and beautiful moments, interesting and intriguing moments, well-written moments, and even funny, witty, and ridiculous moments. Like I already said, it's the best game in the entire trilogy in my opinion, and is my favorite Five Nights at Freddy's fan game of all time.
Dayshift at Freddy's is quite simply a masterpiece in nearly every way. What started off as a shitpost later became a genuine, high-effort, high-quality, compelling work of art. Because of this, it doesn't surprise me that this game was well received among the FNAF community. If you're someone who has never played or even heard of any of these games before, or have only seen Let's Plays on YouTube, whether you've seen a bit of the game or the game in full, I recommend you play these 3 games. They're really fun to play if you need a good laugh, and if you're looking for a well-told and engaging narrative with excellent world building and lore, these games also got you covered. And when it comes to Dayshift 3 at least, there's really fun gameplay in the Tycoon segments and bits and pieces of the flip side. These games are worth your time. And with that, the Dayshift at Freddy's trilogy will forever be a classic, and FNAF Fangames quite simply wouldn't be the same without Dayshift at Freddy's.